Thanks for joining us for another week of Wide Open Throttle. Thanks for being here, fellas. So we're going to start our discussion by talking about the quickly approaching world's greatest drag race. Crucial to the drag race is the instrumented testing that we perform, and we actually covered this on this week's episode of the J-Turn. It's on every other Tuesday, check it out. It's a really intricate process, it's really rigorous. So tell us a little bit about why we do this and how we do it.
It's more in depth than I think a lot of people understand. I basically spend every Wednesday of the year in Fontana testing cars with Scott Mortara and Kim Reynolds. And it's a really fascinating process and a really cool one to be a part of. You learn a lot pushing cars to the limit. And we learn a lot subjectively from doing it, just from the seat of our pants, as well as getting the data that we share with the rest of the team. I'm sure you had a great experience with the Viper too. It looked like a lot of fun. Yes. Because you get to do a lot of burnouts and drifts.
There you go, much better, much better.
Exactly, yeah, and it was great to throw a rounder on the figure eight.
The figure eight's a really cool test, and nobody else in the industry does it, but it gives us a very thorough picture of a car's handling, because it's two 200-foot skid pads separated by 500 feet. So in effect, it's kind of a small road course, and it gives us a great analysis of a car's handling, because you're on the limit of the tires through every part of the track. You come out of a corner at full speed, you end it hard on the brakes, immediately throw it to its lateral limit, turning right or turning left, and then transition back to the straight full throttle. It eats up tires, it eats up brakes quickly, and you get to pretty quickly know which cars are set up well for aggressive handling and which ones aren't.
And there's not a lot of room, as I recall, Carlos, if you make a mistake, you're going to hit a light post or a curb, or, it's in a parking lot, but it's not that big.
You hit high speeds on that track too. It seems small, but like the Viper will do, I think, 80 miles an hour on that. And that's pretty good given the confines of that parking lot.
Yeah. It's neat, guys, because you really use all the parts of the car. You're using the acceleration, you're using the brakes, you're using the tires, the steering. You're really getting a kind of a complete feel for what the car does when you're really driving it hard.
And you get a chance to brake and downshift, and the transitions are really important.
Yeah, the transient experience, it just, basically what it does is it draws friction circles. It does that all day. And if you know what friction circles are, you know how to read them, that's great. But also subjectively, you understand how the car is going to behave at every single limit it can possibly throw at you. And that's hugely important when we're evaluating sports cars, but also like economy cars too, because those cars need to be set up to drive as well.
Did the figure eight replace the slalom as a benchmark test in the industry, or at MotorTrend in particular?
Yeah, we did away with the slalom, I think in the early 2000s. The slalom gives you a very accurate look at a very small piece of handling. So it can be important, but the figure eight as a whole gives us a better picture of a car's dynamics.
It's very good for giving us testing numbers and really showing what a car can do in an ideal situation, but we also, obviously then we have to get out on the road, because a car drives very differently, we found, on the road than it does on the figure eight.
Absolutely, absolutely. Some cars will be really fun on the figure eight when you're power sliding around, then on the road you realize they're too fast for public road.
That's what's so important, is to blend these objective data you're getting with the seat of the pants compressions and subjective responses, because a car can have really great numbers, and time again it will lose a comparison test because our drivers like the way the other car feels on the road.
The reason why we do this stuff is to get a full picture of a car's behavior. So we test acceleration, braking, figure eight, and then we go drive the cars too, because numbers don't tell you everything.
You can't do one without the other.
Exactly. They tell you a small part of a car, but not the full picture.
What do you guys think would surprise viewers most about our testing procedures?
I think how much we beat up the cars. You see the tires when we're done with the figure eight. It works hard, and we're not just doing we're doing one lap on the figure eight, or Carlos is doing one shot down the quarter mile and that's it. We're over and over until we get the best numbers we can. So it's really hard on the cars, and they are the best numbers that we can absolutely get out of the cars.
I would say the other thing is how awful Fontana is in the middle of the summer.
Oh God, I know.
The credit goes to this guy for being out there, and it's brutally hot and dusty and awful.
All right, let's move on now to talk about another show we recently aired, Your Epic Drives in Africa.
What a great trip that was.
Yeah.
Africa is really one of my favorite places on earth to go. The East African plains are wide open. South Africa is more dense with trees, and it's harder to spot the animals, but we went there with the objective of seeing the big five game animals, and we did it in a Subaru Forester 2.0 XT instead of the usual Land Rover, Land Cruiser type vehicle. Can this crossover handle the African wild? And it did a great job. Subaru has done some cool things with this vehicle. It's got 8.7 inches of ground clearance, so it's higher than most in its class. It's got this new X-Mode traction system that allows to have hill descent control and traction control. It does a great job. There were several times we were climbing down some pretty rough, rocky paths, and it was handling it, everything off the pedals, and it just kind of walked itself down like a Land Rover. It was great.
Was it one of the most rough terrains you'd ever driven on?
I think the scariest place you could drive a vehicle would be to take like a Prius through Texas Hill Country, but I don't think it's ever successfully been done. Africa is the kind of place where if your vehicle breaks down, you're going to get eaten.
Yeah.
So
Subaru's good to have, probably.
it was reliable. It's not a Land Rover. It doesn't have that towering ground clearance, so there are a few times where it scraped against some rocks, but all in all, it did a tremendous job, and really was fun to drive because it is lower to the ground. It's more car-like, and there were some times when we were chasing White Rhino, we really got to kind of open it up on these dirt roads, and it was just a blast.
So you saw the Big Five. Why didn't you ride the Big Five?
Well, Carlos, I got pretty close. I'm not going to give away what happens at the end of the episode. I encourage our viewers to watch, but it was amazing. I'll just say that I had one of the most unbelievable experiences toward the end of this episode, where we went out in search of a rare White Rhino. We actually found a couple of them, and then what happens next was just, beyond my wildest dreams. It was unbelievable.
Best moment of the trip right there?
Absolutely.
What was the worst moment?
Coming home.
Really?
Yeah, I really like Africa. And there's just something so primordial about it that it gets to you. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like being out there and having a dinner by a fire with all these animals talking around you at night, the sun going down. Oh, loved it.
What are some of the roughest, most dangerous terrains you guys have ever been on?
I went to a bad neighborhood in Detroit once. That was kind of scary.
Yeah, me too.
I think Belize,
Yeah, we were both in Belize during a monsoon, and
in
they
the
were
jungle, driving like,
swallowing
through
our,
mud. Yeah,
our
that was
Land
pretty-
Rovers. Yeah, that was impressive.
Scott?
The one I wanted to do that I was so envious that some of our guys did was Tokyo to LA the hard way. It was a great story we did. And some of our guys drove from Vladivostok to Magadan in far eastern Russia, and that sounded like pretty much the ultimate epic drive, especially because they were doing it in little sedans. And I wish I could have been there because that looked like an amazing trip.
Okay, so lastly, I want to talk about the recent episode of The Downshift that focused on Bentley's Le Mans experience. We all recently had some seat time for the BDC competition in a Bentley model. I won't say which one. I went to Finland. I got to drift 6 different models on ice. So I just want to talk a little bit about the brand, where it's been, where it's going, what this means in general.
It's interesting, the question is, are they right to be pursuing the speed thing? And I think absolutely they are, because this is what the brand is about, the DNA. Since 1919, I believe, when the company launched, they have been all about pushing the envelope. In the 20s, they owned Le Mans. The Bentley boys won it, 4 times in a row?
5.
5 times in a row. Well,
Not in a row, but 5 times total.
5 times in the 20s, there you go. And then they won it again in the early 2000s, in 2003, I think. And now they've got this cool GT3 car coming out. And they've also got to appeal to their new market, which is China. That's where I think most Bentleys are now being sold. And they're eating up the image of Bentley. So I think they're doing absolutely the right thing. But Carlos, you drove the GT Speed. I only looked at it. So maybe you can talk about how they're doing with that.
It's just an absolutely incredible car. Bentley has a history of motorsports and of good driving, fast cars, but everybody seems to have forgotten that, especially if the younger generation of enthusiasts don't recognize that because they associate Bentley with heavy luxury, which they still are.
But there's a reason for that. The Bentley boys won at Le Mans 5 times in the 1920s, and then they didn't race anything for 70 years. So there's a good reason that people don't naturally associate Bentley with racing. But they did go back. They won Le Mans in 2003. So they do have a racing history, and they have a history of really big engines and really fast cars.
It's true. A world of Bentley race cars is a wonderful world because right now they're combining, the brand ethos of luxury and all that with performance, and like this new GT3 car looks amazing. I want to see that run on a racetrack because the wing. Yeah, well, that's obviously. But it looks fabulous, and then the way this GT Speed drove, the one we just had, you just don't expect it. It's wonderful, and people on the road don't expect.
It goes 205 miles an hour.
They say 205.
It's the fastest Bentley you can buy now. Yeah.
I would like to see, based on the race car down to the road cars, is for some of that mass to just, to go away. Because, 616 horsepower, GT speed, crazy fast, nice driving car, but still, like you said, you still feel that mass.
Well, the GT3 is apparently, what, 2,000 or more pounds lighter. I mean, you can do that with a race car, but you can cut 2,000 pounds out of a car and still have a car?
It's made of balsa wood. Yeah. That's what it is.
If they could cut even, let's say 500 pounds or 1,000 pounds and have, if they can get the performance, if they want to push, hey, we're a performance brand, then let's start feeling like the cars are.
Or the one with the last generation, at the end of the last generation Continental with the Super Sport. Yeah, I mean, that was a really good performance car. But the GT Speed is an incredible car because it is so heavy, you have no idea how fast you're going.
It's so
you
quiet.
are going well over 100 miles an hour, and you're just kind of cruising on, and you don't realize it until you approach a corner or you have to hit the brakes, and you go, wow, I was going really fast because I need a lot of brake, and thank goodness the thing has like 16-inch brake rotors on it.
The funny thing was, I took it up my favorite driving road, and it was lightly trafficked, and I just kept coming up to people who were there for the same reasons, hauling ass on good roads, and they were like, what's this behind me? That's Bentley? And like they would try to stay in front for a while, then eventually it just relented and got over, and this Bentley went by. It's incredible.
It's a monster, yeah.
What do you think most greatly differentiates it from other Bentley models?
The 600 and something horsepower and the 205 mile an hour top speed.
Well, and you're right. I mean, people don't expect that. I mean, from a Bentley, I mean, if you see a Mulsanne rolling down the street, I mean, you're like, that's, very similar to a Rolls Royce. I mean, that's, luxury cars for being chauffeured around it. But this GT Speed, it's just so huge. You don't think something that big can go that fast. But I mean, I had a chance to drive it on the Autobahn, and we were trying to get it, see if we could hit top speed. And I think we hit about 170 when some guy in a Volkswagen just decided he wanted to be in the left lane in front of us. And thank goodness for those brakes, because you don't realize how long it takes to stop from 170 miles an hour.
We all have a preconceived notion of what a Bentley is, that's been developed by seeing all these modern recent Bentleys. But I'm really happy that they're adding this motorsports element to that. They're trying to. I hope it works out for them.
Well, I'll tell you, several years ago, I got to ride with our boy Justin Bell's father, Derek Bell, who's won Le Mans 5 times, in the Speed 8 Bentley that won Le Mans, and we went over 200 miles an hour, and I can tell you, they know how to make a raw, lightweight, wicked racing car, and that DNA goes through everything they make.
So we want them to keep it up.
Absolutely.
All right. To speed,
Cheers.
horsepower, and torque. No cheersing. Ching, 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 ching.